Hello everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to greet everybody who decided to listen and to watch this presentation. And today I'm going to tell you about the very unusual, rather new branch of linguistics, which is called theological linguistics, or in other words, theolinguistics. The topic of my presentation is the linguistic approach to the study of the English language discourse synergy. And here you can find maybe one more word which is quite unusual nowadays. It is synergy. So we will speak today about new branch of linguistics, synthetic branch, which is called theolinguistics, from the point of view of synergetic approach to it. So, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Those are the striking words from Bible, which we all Christians very well know. And for us linguists, it is just an ointment to hear that everything started from the Word. Everything was created with the help of the Word. That is why these very words are just the symbol of the new linguistic branch of science, which is called theological linguistics. Today we will speak about the secret of the Word, the importance of the ritual for achieving the goal, and the transition of our essence in steps. I must say that theological linguistics is a rather young discipline. It appeared just at the end of the 20th century, and from the very beginning, we must say that structural semantic analysis of the language, which is performed on the material of a religious text and provided with theological commentary, is recognized as theological linguistics. It is just in short, in brief. I will give you just a historical glimpse on the development of this new branch. Which started in 1976. That is the year when the term theological linguistics first appeared in linguistic works. And the founder of this very discipline is supposed to be Jean-Pierre van Noppen, who declared that theolinguistics is a branch of linguistics which strives to describe how a human word can be used in relation to God, as well as the way language functions in religious situations, in situations that do not meet the rigid standards of direct one-way communication. I must say that nowadays the understanding of theological linguistics went rather far from this initial definition given by Van Noppen, but nevertheless his contribution is absolutely important for us because he was the founder of theological linguistics itself. In 1987, our famous compiler of the Cambridge Encyclopedia of Language, David Crystal, included in this encyclopedia the article devoted to theological linguistics, and he claimed that theolinguistics is a science that studies the relationship language, religious theory and practice, and attitude explicated in the text of church rituals, in the language of Holy Scriptures, in the text of sermons and prayers, in the messages of church hierarchs, and in individual utterances of believers. To tell you the truth, 25 years later, David Crystal nevertheless was a little bit disappointed in the speed with which this branch of science developed. And he wrote in his article whatever happened to theolinguistics, that after the bright appearance of this discipline in the scientific firmament, there is currently a noticeable weakening of the interest of professional linguists in the development of this young gent in linguistics. And as a result, theolinguistics, in comparison with other professional linguistics, somehow made little progress in scientific research since its appearance. Nevertheless, in 1995, Professor Wagner wrote a programming work where he encircled, so to say, two perspectives for the functioning of the new discipline: linguistic and theological. In the field of language, within the framework of theolinguistics, Wagner touches on the following issues: features of the religion language, the problem of religion linguistics behavior, religion's forms of communication, and the specifics of the sphere of the use of religious language. In the field of Christian theology, theolinguistics would be a great assistant in solving problems related to modern systematics of practical theological aspects in historical terms, in solving problems dealing with historical and hermeneutic phenomena. Also, Wagner believes that one of the interesting areas for research in line with theolinguistics is the observed religion linguistic behavior of the central Christian form of communication, which is, of course, worship, the linguistic analysis of which is still in its infancy. I'm very glad to announce that after at the beginning of the 21st century, our Slavonic scientists, among whom there are quite prominent Polish scientists, Elżbieta Kucharska-Dreis, Alexander Gadomski, and Ukrainian scientists as well, Postaval, Koncherevich, Kravchenko, Bedubna. Sorry, Koncherevich is a Serbian scientist, but nevertheless, they organized and they somehow combined a Slavonic branch, so to say, of theological discipline. All our Polish and Ukrainian theological linguists claim that the creation of this new linguistic discipline is connected with the impossibility within the framework of traditional linguistics to obtain an adequate explanation of such intimate moments of theolinguistics reality as, and that is the most important one, the creation of the world with a word, with which I started my lecture, a paradise language, glossolalia, the spiritual experience of smart doing, in other words, sacred silence. And of course, the second most important moment is liturgical practice of the Church. So, considering that in Slavic linguistics the idea of creating theolinguistics as an independent field of knowledge was born relatively recently, as I told you, somewhere at the beginning of the 21st century, at the present stage of its formation we can single out three approaches to understanding the goals and objectives of this discipline. According to the first approach, the main task of theological linguistics is to study the role of the language of religion in society. Another approach provides as the main task the study of the religious language in the narrow and broad senses. In a narrow sense, religious language is understood as the language of moral and dogmatic theology, as well as the ritual language. Again, I insist on this word ritual language, the language of personal prayers, holy texts, sermons, etc. In a broad sense, religious language also includes spoken language containing statements about God, as well as the language of texts on any religious topic. And the third approach provides for the tasks of theological linguistics to perform the function of an intermediate link between the religion itself and society on the other hand. As any academic science, as any academic discipline, theological linguistics possesses some methodological basis. So the theolinguistic methodology comprises of both purely scientific methods, and you can see it on the screen because it is singled out with different color, and some additional so-called metaphysical method. I will speak about all of them a little bit in detail. So, the first method in the theolinguistics methodology is so-called hermeneutic method, general and special, linguistic and extra-linguistic. So the general hermeneutic method explores the principles of interpretation of the entire text and includes historical, cultural, contextual, lexical, syntactic, and ideological analysis. The special hermeneutic method studies the rules that apply to a specific literary genre. If you don't mind, I will just stop for a while to illustrate somehow how important this method is for our discipline. For example, all of you, I think, heard such proverb from the Bible as it is as difficult for a rich man to enter the heaven as the camel to go through the needle eye. It is absolutely not understandable for a person who doesn't know the reality of that time. Why should the camel go through the needle eye? Yes? In fact, for those who knows a little bit the context, the biblical context of this very situation, they will understand that at that time the huge gates to Jerusalem were called needle eye, and that is why the camel, which was loaded with some loads, yes, was met a lot of difficulties to go through this very gate. But if it gets rid of all these loads, yes, it is absolutely easy for it, to go through these very gates. The next method, which is covered in green, is so-called anthropocentric approach. Here we take into account the human factor in the language. The next method is so-called systematic approach. It allows us to consider a semantic sphere that represents the concept under study in the integrity of its constituent elements. Axiological approach opens up the possibility of understanding how, through its concept, a person expresses his attitude to the world or to the object which he examines or studies. Method of etymological and word formation reconstruction is also of a great importance for our new discipline, as it helps to convey component, distributive, and contextual analysis of the texts under study. And here, again, I would like to illustrate it on concrete examples, I think quite familiar for you. For example, the biblical expression, cry in the wilderness. We all know this very expression, and in our everyday communication, that means that the person who cries in the wilderness is not heard, is not understood, and is not appreciated. So this very expression is absolutely negatively connotated, yes? In fact, in Bible, we know this very situation when John the Baptist, getting to know about the birth of Christ, was so delighted and full of joy that he just came in the desert and cried with happiness in the wilderness that Christ is born. So it had, in the Bible, it had just the opposite meaning. And for example, one more expression that we quite often use in our everyday speech: let your left hand not know what the right hand is doing. Yes, we do know that it means that we are speaking about some discoordination. Usually we apply this proverb to our authorities, yes, when we are not satisfied with their actions, yes. So they are not coordinated, they do not know what each of the department is doing, and so on and so forth. In fact, it is the words of Christ who told us, who taught us to do good things without waiting for a reward, yes. So if you, for example, gave something from your left pocket to the beggar, forget about it, so that even your right hand does not know that you just now did some good doing, yes? So this very method of etymological and word formation reconstruction is of great importance, especially when we're dealing with the biblical words and biblical expressions. And I deliberately put aside a little bit the method which was colored in purple on my presentation, and it is called a metaphysical method. You see that it is not absolutely purely scientific method, because as we all know, this very metaphysical approach deals with metaphysics, which means the doctrine of the unchanging and inaccessible principles of the world outside their interconnection. So in this very, with the help of this very approach, we can allow ourselves address to some things which are beyond of our scientific understanding. David Crystal somehow mentioned that the theological linguistics is not quite rapidly developing, and that was a great regret of our famous scientists about this very fact. But we can explain why this slowness appears in the development of theological linguistics. There are two objective reasons for difficulties in the development of theological linguistics. The main objective reason is the epistemological roots of its components. Let's come a little bit aside and remind you what epistemology is. Yes? Epistemology goes from the Greek word episteme, which means knowledge or understanding. That is why epistemology refers to the nature and origin of knowledge and truth. Usually, when we speak about epistemology, we think about four main bases for getting the knowledge: experience, logic and reason, intuition, and divine revelation. So, as you see, the experience and logic is reason can be referred to purely scientific methods of getting knowledge, ways of getting knowledge, so to say. Intuition is something which is not understood completely, I think, by us so far. Some people think that intuition is something which is the accumulated, maybe experience, maybe not of a person, but of the generation, maybe the genetics, some experience. We do not know exactly what intuition is, but it is clear that somehow it is based on the previous experience, either of yours or of your predecessors. We do not know exactly. It is something which is given to us, but not just for granted, because it is something which is given to us through our experience. And divine revelation is the source of knowledge which is absolutely independent from us, so to say, yes? If we speak about any academic sciences or disciplines, we are speaking about, synthetic branch disciplines, of course. We are speaking about one source of getting the information, of getting the knowledge, and this source is science, yes? For example, such synthetic branches of linguistics as social linguistics, psycholinguistics, gender linguistics, linguo-cultural sciences, etc. They are all based on one area of knowledge, which is science, yes? In contrast to them, theological linguistics combines epistemes which belong to different spheres of knowledge. Linguistic representation from the sphere of science are combined with theological representations from the sphere of theology, that is, religion. In some of his works, famous scientist Synergetic, very witty, called such formations center formation. The integration of ideas from the scientific sphere of cognition into the sphere of religious cognition of spiritual principles creates enormous difficulties that are inevitable when two different traditions of thinking are combined or united. But on the other hand, this inhomogeneity of theological linguistics as a synthetic discipline makes it possible to approach the problems that are difficult to solve within the framework of purely scientific method. So, on the one hand, this inhomogeneity of the sources of knowledge in theological linguistics is a break, is reason for difficulty. On the other hand, it can help to approach some problems which is not possible to solve within purely academic approach. The second objective reason for the emergence of difficulties in the development of theological linguistics is the fact that theology itself is inhomogeneous in nature. What is theology? On one hand, it is the doctrine of God, constructed in the logical form of idealistic speculations on the basis of texts taken as God's evidence of himself or God's revelation. So, theology presupposes the concept of a personal absolute, which God imparting to man knowledge of himself through his own word. So we deal with superational revelation and at the same time rationalistic analysis of this very revelation. At the very beginning of our communication, I told you about synergy in the discourse from the point of view of theological linguistics. To understand the synergy or synergetics approach to the study of the discourse, we can understand what synergetics is and what is it based on. So, synergetics is an interdisciplinary area of scientific research that studies the laws and principles underlying the process of self-organization in systems of different nature. Here we can speak about physical, chemical, biological, all natural sciences, but about linguistics as well. Synergetic approach to the study of the discourse is based on the understanding of the discourse as a self-developing system. And any self-developing system has some categories which are typical of this very system. The first characteristic feature of any self-developing system is systemicity or consistency. So this is the interlink between all the components of the system, all the structural elements this system consists. The main characteristic feature of system able to self-organize is ability to self-organize. It is clear. Very interesting peculiar feature of any self-organizing system is homeostasis. So this is quite an interesting ability of system to be in relative dynamic stability. So on one hand it is absolutely stable, and on the other hand it is able to move somehow. So this is the motion in this state of staying, so to say. Non-linearity, it is clear that it is impossible to speak about just linear, step-by-step regulated changes in any systems. We do understand that any system should undergo some step before some push to develop and to raise or to lower, it depends on in which way the system will go, to some new level. Openness, the next peculiar feature of any self-developing system, and it is clear why, because if it is not open, it will not be able to streamline and to self-organize itself. Instability, it doesn't contradict the property of dynamic stability, I think, because any self-organizing system is able to change, and to change it needs to have from time to time this very state of instability. Emergence. That is not the synonym of the word appearance, because that is a very interesting, I would say, property of the discourse or any self-organizing system. When we meet such a phenomenon, of appearance of some general properties of the system which are not typical of any of the components of this very system. So this emergence means that the system has properties that are not peculiar for its components. Very important and very interesting property of the self-organizing system. Interdiscursivity for the investigation of the discourse, it is very important property, but any self-organizing system has this very property. So we know that there is nothing new in this very world. We somehow are interconnected with the previous phenomena, data, events, and so on and so forth. And that is why this very interconnection, interrelation with different other self-developing systems is a very important property of a self-organizing system. Symmetry and asymmetry, it is clear that at one stage of any system is characterized by its symmetry, and in some stages of its development it can be characterized by asymmetry. The very important moment for us to understand that the essence of the synergetic approach is based on the concept of synergy. And now I would like to stop a little bit in detail about what synergy is in any secular or profane understanding and in religious understanding. So, according to the definition given by Philosophical Dictionary, synergy is joint action or the interaction of various potencies or types of energies in a holistic action. So, in its first meaning, it is clear that this term is used in various humanities and natural sciences. For example, in medicine, synergy is understood as the combined effect of two or more drugs significantly exceeding the effect of each component individually. In economics, for example, this is the condition under which the total result exceeds the sum of the combined effects. In sociology as well, it is understood that something which helps to somehow multiply the effect applied to it. In short, to understand it absolutely clear, we understand that synergy is something like equation 2 + 2 = 5. That is, very primitively, the basis of the synergy. In theology, it is a little bit deeper and it is a little bit more complicated. It means the participation of man in the redemptive works of God.